Aisha, Rahim, Zara, and Imran had planned the trip of a lifetime. A journey to paradise they believed would bring laughter, memories, and freedom. But by the end of the first night, everything changed. One of them would never return, and the dream they chased became a nightmare none of them could escape. The moment they landed, the trip felt like it had already succeeded. Warm air rushed in as they stepped out of the airport, carrying the smell of the sea and city life mixed together. The long journey seemed worth it instantly. Bright signs, busy streets, and smiling faces gave the impression of a place full of energy and welcome. Their luggage arrived without delay, and the drive to the hotel showed colorful buildings, street vendors, and endless movement. Everything looked alive and safe. The hotel stood close to the coastline, just as promised in the pictures. From the balconies, the ocean stretched out in deep blue shades, calm and inviting. Palm trees moved gently in the wind, and tourists from different countries filled the area with laughter and cameras. The group felt relaxed for the first time in years. Stress from home felt far away, replaced by excitement and curiosity. They unpacked quickly, eager to explore. That first day passed smoothly. They walked along the beach, watched the sunset, and explored nearby streets filled with shops and food stalls. Every corner felt like something new waiting to be discovered. Locals appeared friendly, offering help and directions without hesitation. The city seemed to promise nothing but good memories. As night fell, lights reflected on the water, creating a peaceful scene that felt almost unreal. Before sleeping, they shared photos and short videos with family back home, showing smiles and perfect views. Everyone believed this trip would be remembered only for joy and laughter. No one sensed the quiet warning hidden beneath the beauty around them. The place that felt so welcoming had secrets beneath its surface, and the calm arrival was only the beginning of a story that would soon take a disturbing turn. By the third day, the rhythm of the trip began to change in ways that were small but noticeable. What had started as shared laughter and constant movement slowly shifted. One of the friends no longer joined every plan. He woke up later than the others and often stayed behind while the group went out. At first, it seemed harmless, like simple tiredness from travel. Long walks, late nights, and unfamiliar food can affect anyone, and no one wanted to question it. Subtle signs continued to appear. He checked his phone more often and stepped away to read messages in private. Late at night, the screen of his phone lit up repeatedly, though he never explained why. When asked, he brushed it off with vague gestures and changed the subject. The others chose not to push. Friendship was built on trust, and they believed everyone deserved space. His mood also changed. The excitement that had filled his face during the first days slowly disappeared. He seemed distracted, staring out toward the ocean for long periods, lost in thought. At meals, he ate little and spoke less. The group noticed the silence but avoided discussing it, fearing they might be overthinking a temporary mood. Despite these changes, the trip continued. The city remained beautiful, and the weather stayed perfect. Laughter still returned during shared moments, hiding the growing tension beneath the surface. No one imagined that these small shifts were warnings. They were signs of something unfolding quietly, away from shared plans and group photos. That evening, as the lights of the city reflected on the water, unease settled without explanation. The feeling was easy to ignore, and they did just that. They believed the next day would restore the joy they felt at the start. They did not realize that this distance was the first step toward a tragedy already moving closer, unseen and unstoppable. That evening, the group made a decision that would later be remembered with deep regret. After days of visiting popular places filled with tourists, they wanted something different. Online posts had mentioned a quiet area outside the city, known for its open views and empty roads. It sounded peaceful and adventurous, a chance to see the destination beyond the usual attractions. Without much thought, they agreed it would be a good way to end the day. As they traveled farther from the center, the surroundings slowly changed. Bright lights faded into dim streets, and busy crowds were replaced by silence. Buildings looked older and poorly maintained. The road narrowed, and the sound of the ocean disappeared. The atmosphere felt heavier, but no one suggested turning back. The excitement of doing something different pushed caution aside. The area was almost empty when they arrived. Streetlights flickered, casting long shadows that stretched across the ground. A few distant figures moved quietly, difficult to see clearly. The place felt disconnected from the lively city they had grown comfortable with. Still, they stayed longer than planned, walking around and observing their unfamiliar surroundings. Time passed quickly, and night fully settled in. A sense of unease grew stronger, especially for one of them, whose silence became more noticeable. The group finally decided to leave, realizing the area offered nothing more to see. The return journey felt longer, filled with quiet thoughts instead of conversation. What none of them knew was that this decision had already set unseen events in motion. Being in that isolated place at that specific time placed them on a path they could not step away from. It was a moment that seemed unimportant at the time, yet it quietly shaped everything that followed, marking the beginning of consequences they were not prepared to face. The next morning began with confusion and rising fear. Sunlight filled the hotel room, but one bed remained untouched. At first, the others assumed he had gone out early for a walk or stepped outside to take photos. Minutes passed, then an hour, and there was still no sign of him. His phone did not connect, and messages went unanswered. A strange silence settled over the room, replacing the relaxed mood of the previous days. They searched the hotel area, checking the lobby, restaurant, and nearby streets. Hotel staff were informed, but no one had seen him return during the night. His shoes, passport, and most of his clothes were still in the room, making the situation more alarming. It was clear he had not planned to leave for long. What began as worry quickly turned into panic. As time passed, fear grew heavier. Calls were made again and again, hoping for a response that never came. The beach, once peaceful and inviting, now felt threatening and empty. Every unfamiliar face increased the sense of danger. The thought that something had gone wrong became impossible to ignore. Local authorities were contacted, and basic questions were asked, but answers were limited. No clear timeline could be confirmed. His last known movement remained a mystery. The group struggled to explain how someone could disappear so suddenly without leaving a trace. By afternoon, reality became unavoidable. This was no misunderstanding or simple delay. One of them was missing in a foreign country, far from home. The dream trip had collapsed into fear and uncertainty. Smiles from earlier photos felt distant and unreal. As night approached again, hope slowly faded, replaced by the terrifying thought that their friend might never return. The investigation began quickly but moved in a confusing direction. Local police asked detailed questions about the missing man's habits, recent actions, and relationships within the group. Every answer seemed to create more uncertainty instead of clarity. Officers searched nearby streets, beaches, and empty buildings, yet nothing unusual was found. The area remained silent, offering no signs of what had happened during the night. Security footage from the hotel provided the first solid lead. Cameras showed him leaving alone late at night, moving calmly and without hesitation. He did not appear frightened or rushed. This detail raised more questions than comfort. If he had left willingly, where was he going, and why did he not return? The footage showed him walking toward the road leading away from the city, the same direction they had visited the previous evening. Investigators expanded the search along that route. Cameras from small shops and intersections captured fragments of his path, but the trail suddenly ended near a deserted stretch of road close to the shoreline. Beyond that point, there were no cameras, no witnesses, and no clear signs of struggle. The absence of evidence felt deliberate, as if the night had swallowed him whole. Rumors began spreading quickly. Online posts suggested accidents, secret relationships, and even planned disappearances. Each theory added pressure, but offered no truth. The group felt trapped between hope and fear, unable to trust any explanation. Days passed with no progress. The case grew cold faster than expected. Without physical evidence or reliable witnesses, the investigation stalled. The silence surrounding his disappearance became louder than any answer. Every unanswered question deepened the fear that the truth might never fully surface, leaving only fragments of a story that refused to make sense. As the search continued, investigators began looking beyond the events of the night and into the missing man's private life. This shift uncovered details that surprised everyone. Phone records showed repeated contact with an unknown number shortly after their arrival. These calls were short but frequent, suggesting planned communication rather than chance. This information had never been shared with the group, raising uncomfortable questions about what he had been hiding. Further examination of his online activity revealed private messages arranged during the trip. He had connected with someone local and scheduled secret meetings away from the group. The content of these messages suggested urgency and risk, though the full meaning remained unclear. What became certain was that his disappearance was not random. He had stepped into a situation alone, without informing anyone who could have helped. Financial records added another layer of concern. Small but unusual transactions appeared in the days before he vanished. They pointed toward an informal deal rather than tourism expenses. Investigators suspected he had been promised something valuable, enough to draw him into a private meeting late at night. This discovery shifted the case from a missing person search to a potential crime investigation. The group struggled to accept this version of events. Trust fractured as they realized how little they truly knew. The person they believed they understood had been living a hidden story alongside their shared experience. Guilt settled heavily, as they wondered if warning signs had been ignored. Authorities attempted to trace the unknown contact, but the trail led to false identities and disconnected numbers. Whoever had arranged the meeting had disappeared as completely as the man himself. The truth, once hidden, now stood partially exposed, yet it brought no relief. Instead, it confirmed that the danger had been real, calculated, and deliberately concealed until it was. Several days after the investigation slowed, a sudden discovery brought the case back into focus. Early one morning, local fishermen noticed an object floating near the rocky edge of the shoreline, far from the busy beach areas. It moved strangely with the waves, caught between the water and the shore. When it was pulled closer, its condition immediately raised concern. Authorities were called, and the area was secured. The object was a backpack, heavily damaged by salt water and time. Zippers were broken, fabric torn, and straps nearly ripped apart. Inside, a few personal items remained. Among them were documents with faded ink, a wallet emptied of cash, and a wristwatch cracked beyond repair. The backpack was quickly identified as belonging to the missing traveler. This discovery ended any remaining hope that he had simply walked away. The location of the backpack deepened the mystery. Strong currents did not usually carry objects to that area, suggesting it had been placed there deliberately or entered the water much closer than expected. There were no signs of a fall from the nearby cliffs. The damage pointed toward force rather than accident. For the group, the discovery was devastating. It transformed fear into painful certainty. The sea, once a symbol of peace during their arrival, now felt cold and unforgiving. The quiet waves seemed to hide answers no one could reach. Investigators searched the surrounding waters and coastline, but no further evidence appeared. The backpack became the strongest physical proof in the case, confirming violence without revealing how or where it truly happened. Instead of closure, the discovery opened deeper questions. It showed that the truth was close, yet still just beyond reach, drifting silently beneath the surface. With the evidence finally connected, investigators began to understand the full picture, though it came far too late. The missing man's secret meetings were not driven by curiosity or romance, but by a risky opportunity he believed would benefit him quickly. He had been promised something valuable in exchange for trust and silence. That promise led him out alone on the final night, convinced he was in control of the situation. The meeting took place in a remote area, chosen carefully to avoid attention. What he did not know was that he was never meant to leave. The people involved had planned the encounter with precision, using false identities and disposable contact methods. When the situation turned violent, there was no one nearby to help and no record left behind. The location ensured the act would remain hidden. The damaged backpack was used to mislead investigators, placed in the water to suggest an accident or random crime. It worked. Valuable time was lost following false leads. By the time the truth emerged, those responsible had already disappeared, likely leaving the country within hours. Authorities gathered enough information to confirm what happened, but not enough to name or locate suspects. Without witnesses or direct physical evidence, the case could not move forward legally. Files were closed quietly, labeled as an unresolved homicide. For the group, the truth brought no comfort. Knowing what happened did not erase the pain or guilt. The unanswered details were as heavy as the confirmed facts. Justice never arrived, and the story ended without punishment. What remained was a clear reminder that some crimes are carefully designed to leave behind only fragments, enough to reveal the truth, but never enough to hold anyone accountable. The conclusion of the case did not bring peace, only a heavy silence that followed everyone involved. Official reports were finalized, stamped, and filed away, but the loss remained raw and personal. The authority, for close friends, had spent years talking about this trip, treating it like a promise they would one day keep. Life had pulled them in different directions with work, family pressure, and responsibilities, but the idea of traveling together never faded. They wanted a break from routine, a chance to feel free, and memories they could carry for the rest of their lives. After months of planning, they finally chose a destination that felt safe, affordable, and beautiful. Online reviews described calm beaches, friendly locals, and endless sunshine. To them, it sounded like the perfect escape from everyday stress. Each of them had their own reason for going. One wanted adventure, another wanted rest, one hoped the trip would help him forget personal problems, and the last simply wanted to feel young again. They saved money slowly, cutting back on small comforts to make the dream possible. Flight tickets were booked, hotel rooms reserved, and lists were made for clothes and cameras. Their families felt proud and excited, believing this journey would bring happiness and stronger bonds. In the days before departure, excitement filled every conversation. Photos of the destination were shared again and again, building expectations of peaceful nights and unforgettable moments. None of them thought about danger or risk. They trusted the world they were about to explore and trusted each other completely. The trip felt like a reward for patience and hard work, a rare moment when everything finally came together. What they did not know was that this carefully planned dream carried hidden shadows. The journey that was meant to bring joy was already moving toward a dark and irreversible turn, waiting quietly for the perfect moment to reveal itself. The aftermath of the trip lingered far longer than anyone expected. For the friends who returned, life seemed to move forward, but nothing felt the same. Everyday routines, once comforting, now carried subtle reminders of what had been lost. The laughter they once shared felt hollow, and even the simple act of talking about vacations or travel brought a wave of unease. The images and souvenirs from the trip were no longer joyful reminders, but painful triggers of a nightmare that had never truly ended. Family and friends at home struggled to understand what had happened. Questions about safety, decisions, and timing were endless, but no one could provide clear answers. Each attempt to explain the events was met with silence or disbelief. The gap left by the missing traveler was not just physical. It created a shadow over every memory and conversation about the trip. They all carried a quiet grief that could not be shared, a weight that pressed down without warning. The truth of the events was known only in fragments. Investigators had pieced together the sequence, uncovering secret meetings and the calculated danger that awaited him. Yet those responsible remained beyond reach. The legal system could not bring justice, and the reasons behind each choice made by the missing friend were forever partially obscured. The combination of secrecy, timing, and danger had created a tragedy that could not be undone. In the end, the dream trip became a lasting lesson. It reminded everyone that travel can carry hidden risks, that trust can sometimes hide danger, and that even careful planning cannot protect against everything. One of the group returned home physically, but emotionally, part of them remained on that distant shore. One never returned at all, leaving a story of hope, betrayal, and loss that would haunt everyone who had been there, quietly and permanently.